Well, good morning. It's 11 o'clock. It's Friday, the 5th of June, and this is number 40-something in the series of my 11s. You're watching Kevin Williams here of Survival Skills Rider Training, and I've been bringing you 11s during our coronavirus lockdown. So the first thing I want to say is that as the lockdown has eased dramatically, I know that more people are back at work. So what I'm doing is I'm going to reduce the number of shows to 2 a week. I've polled people on Facebook, and it does seem that a lot of people are watching it on catch up. I know that there are live viewers out there who like to catch it live, but the numbers have dropped off a little bit. And most people are watching it after the event. So I'll keep it going. I've enjoyed delivering it. I've enjoyed bringing you sort of news and topics of interest. But from today, this will be the last of the Friday shows. We'll have one on Sunday and we'll have one on Wednesday. So one during the week and one at the weekends. And hopefully that will keep most people happy. And of course, you can catch it on the Facebook here after it's gone out live. And I'm also putting it up on YouTube and my coffee page. So that's just a quick intro to what's happening with 11s. So down to twice a week, which I think is a reasonable number, means I'm not too committed as I'm starting to get back to work as well. So what have we got for you in the rest of the news? Well, we've got an interesting event involving what is described as a motorised sofa. I was hoping to be able to show you photos of this, but my little program, which normally displays the photos, seems to have crashed. So I'll sort of have to put them up afterwards. Princess Hermine of Clermont-Tonnerre is reportedly seriously ill after a collision with a car on her motorcycle. I'll be talking about my back to biking courses, and in particular, I want just to cover a little bit of about the Rev conference tonight. This is a sort of big event, the first of its kind as far as I'm aware, and I'll talk about that for a moment too. Motorcycle Industry Association have launched a new campaign to get people back onto bikes. I'll talk about that. I've got a photograph which again I would have shown you on the little photo viewer, but it's broken down, of an invisible cop. And finally, I'll be talking about animals on the road and how to deal with them. So don't forget, if you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, any feedback at all, I'm always happy to hear it. You can leave it there in the comment box and I will get back to you at the end of the live show. So just a reminder, you're watching Kevin Williams here with 11s. Right, okay, so on with the first item. Now this was an odd one. Police in the Eichsfeld district, which is in northwestern Thuringia, Thuringia, I think it's pronounced properly, in Germany, are hunting for a number of people who appear to have been involved in a collision which has been described as a motorised sofa. Now, I wanted to show you the picture of this because it is fairly stunning. It's basically a trike, but somebody has built a sort of bracket hanging on the front of it and mounted a sofa on it. So apparently 4 people were involved. One assumes that there'll be probably one riding the bike it's attached to, which is some kind of Yamaha, apparently, and 3 people in the sofa. It's not entirely clear what happened from the reports. Details are sketchy, but it appears that the sofa left the road on its own when it was involved in this crash on Monday the 1st of June. So that's what the police in Thuringia are after. Rather more serious item, Princess Hermine of Clermont-Tonnerre is reported to be in a coma after she was involved in a serious car crash whilst riding her motorcycle. The French publication La Voix du Nord reports that she was injured in the crash which took place on Monday, although nothing much is known about how or what happened. The Princess has worked as a stylist, an author, and a reality star, and she's apparently known for her love of Harley-Davidson motorcycles. She's got 2 children, which she apparently shares with her ex-husband. So let's hope she makes a full recovery. Now back to biking. Again, I wanted to show you the picture, but I'm stuffed without my little slideshow program. I'm open for business again. I sort of started taking bookings as of Monday, and right at this moment, I've got 1 course booked already for Wednesday next week, and I am working with 2 other people to sort out dates. So hopefully, I will get some motorcycling training up and running very soon indeed. One of the courses that I'm keen to run is a sort of back to work course for riders here in the London area. Now, you probably know I'm based up in northwest London these days, not too far from the delights of Wembley. And what that means really is that anywhere within the northwest quadrant of London, anywhere really from sort of Marble Arch and the city out to the M25, sort of Essex way, north, just the border with Waltham Abbey area, and right down towards the sort of the M4, M40 zone, is all within easy reach for me, anywhere within that zone. So my starting points for courses at the moment are going to be somewhere in the M40, M25 area, somewhere up around Watford, which is on the M1, and then M25 junction 26, which is just in, as I say, Waltham Abbey area. All of those are within about 40 minutes ride for me. I'm also happy to start not too far from me on the North Circular Road. That's easy for me to get to, and there's no reason I can't ride into central London and run a course from out of the town either. I'm not relaunching my start points in Kent or in Surrey just yet, nor in Oxford either, simply because the journey is a bit on the long side. It takes me over an hour to get to those. And what I'm trying to do at the moment is keep the time commitment for these courses down, not just for you, the potential trainee, but for me as an instructor. One of the problems at the moment is, although there are public toilets open in service areas and some other establishments, a lot are still closed. With cafes and the rest of the places that I would normally stop for a lunch break, for example, are still closed at the moment. They are likely to reopen at some point in the near future, but in line with sort of social distancing advice, I'm still being cautious about thinking about going back to places like that for the time being, as much for my protection as for my trainees. So there will be changes to the way I'm delivering these courses, and what that effectively means is that I will be making much more use of the internet for delivering theory and briefings than I would have done previously. What I would have done face to face, a lot of it actually can be done through a video link over the internet. So look out for my courses, but think about how they can be run and how I'm going to take advantage of the things like the Zoom video conferencing. Okay, so as I say, I'm open again for training. The courses will be about 2 hours on road. Hopefully that means we can all ride to meet each other and ride home again without having to do any sort of food and drink stops or anything like that. We can bring our own snacks, that kind of thing. And as I say, the online briefing will take the place of the face-to-face stuff. So that's what I'm doing personally. The other big event that I want to tell you about is the Rev conference, which is tonight. I've already put the link up in the comments there, revtalks.com. Have a look for that. It's a one-of-a-kind event, and probably the first of its kind. I don't know of anything else which has been done like this. It's effectively an online conference, and what it does is it's bringing together a big speaker list. Go and have a look at the number of people who are talking on that list, which is on the link over there. I'm speaking. I'm delivering my Science of Being Seen presentation, and that will be going out at 4 p.m. EDT, which is US time, East Coast, which is equivalent to 9 p.m. UK. So have a look for that. It's not free. I'm sorry to say. We do have to pay for some things in our lives. You get this for nout, but the Rev Talks is $20 to sign up for. You can still sign up today. But bang for buck, I think it's a huge event. You'll be able to see all sorts of different speakers from all around the world. Okay, so just a reminder that you are watching Kevin Williams here with Elevenses, and what I'm doing is bringing you my topical news, controversial views, and better biking tips show. What we've still got for you to come is a talk about dealing with animals out on the roads, and the next story I've got is what the MCIA, the Motorcycle Industry Association, is doing. I've talked quite a lot about how motorcycles are undoubtedly going to play a part in personal mobility as we deal with the pandemic, and particularly in terms of social distancing, where people don't want to be using crowded public transport, and quite understandably, in my opinion. So scooters and motorcycles absolutely have a role to play, and I've been talking about how that could work for, well, ever since basically I started talking about delivering Elevenses. So anyway, the MCIA have finally got on board with this, and they have launched a campaign, and what they're saying is that key personnel from manufacturers, distributors, aftermarket wholesalers, motorcycle dealers, insurance, consumer, trade, media, training, and dealer associations have all pooled resources, and they created what they call a hard-hitting campaign aimed at placing the benefits of riding a PTW powered two-wheeler stage centre as a real alternative to crowded and COVID-19 unsafe public transport. This is called Unlock Your Freedom, and it's a digital, social media, and radio campaign that gets underway on the 3rd, which was Wednesday, wasn't it? And the press releases will be distributed, it says, to specialist and non-specialist media. And what they basically say is that, it's been well documented that the government advises considering other forms of transport before using public transport, but they have rather overlooked the choice of motorcycles and scooters. In fact, it took some prodding of Grant Shapps, who's the transport minister, to actually say yes when they talked about using cars, that they were actually meant motorcycles as well. So it was a bit of a sort of an afterthought for the government there. And the MCIA trot out the usual things that motorcycles are fun, that they have cost-associated benefits, and they go on to say that the campaign will give out easy to understand information about the licensing process, training, clothing, and an outline of how you can use a PTW to stay safe and isolated. The CEO of MCIA, who's called Tony Campbell, he said, powered two-wheelers are the perfect solution to the current government advice for avoiding public transport. We're looking to every biker, industry connection, two-wheeled advocate to get behind the campaign to open up powered two-wheelers to the masses and highlight the very real benefits of travelling on two wheels. I suppose that would be me, wouldn't it, a two-wheeled advocate? So they snaffled the domain unlockfreedom.co.uk, so that should be relatively easy to find. Now, the only thing that I kind of take a little bit of not offence exactly, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable about the graphic which they've used to promote the campaign. I can't show it to you right this moment, which is a real pain in the neck, but to try and describe it in a bit of a word picture for you, the graphic shows somebody with a mask on and a big red cross saying confined, and it says public transport underneath it. And then it shows next to it a picture of somebody happily riding a scooter and an open face helmet and some a smarter tyre saying freedom and two wheels underneath it. I can't help but think that there's a slight element of scary story in that. And I do feel that when we're promoting motorcycling, we have to be careful. We're under enough pressure already because of the risks of riding are seen as too high, and whatever the claims for clean motorcycling, it does come rather second best to modern electric and the hybrid cars. Even modern small petrol engine cars are cleaner than the average motorcycle. So motorcycling does have some drawbacks, and I think we have to be honest about how we approach things like this. I'm kind of slightly unhappy with that photo and the way it's presented. But nevertheless, as I say, I am fully in favour of getting people out on bikes as a way around the COVID-19 problem. Right, okay, so, all right, don't forget, if you want something to read, you can always hop over to my survival skills page on my publishers, Lulu. Yeah, they are called, and you can see the URL there. I've written a number of books on better motorcycling. There are three, in fact, which work together. There's one called Survival Skills, which is basically a DIY guide to how to ride to a higher standard. There's one called Mind Over Motorcycle, which explains how it is our brains, which were designed for a top speed of about 20 miles an hour, actually managed to cope with motorcycling at much higher speeds. And the third one is called Tarmac Tactics, and that's really the kind of accumulated knowledge that I gained as a motorcycle courier, putting hundreds of thousands of miles on the bike in all weathers, in all conditions, on all sorts of roads. And Tarmac Tactics is a really good book if you happen to be a relative novice rider. So you're feeling that you're reasonably in control of the motorcycle, but you want to know more about the kind of hazards that you'll face as a rider. Well, that's what Tarmac Tactics was written to do. It fills in a lot of holes that are in books like the IM guidebook and the Motorcycle Roadcraft, which are packed full of really good stuff, but don't actually talk about the detail of what we need to know about out on the road. And one of the things that I talk about in that book is dealing with the problems of wild animals and domesticated animals on the roads. And I was kind of reminded of that when I caught another news story in my newsfeed. As I've said numerous times, I get lots of reports of bike crashes in my feed, which drops through the letterbox virtually every day. And one in particular caught my eye, and that was earlier this week up in Yorkshire, when a rider was injured when he came off after he hit and killed a lamb. So that's what I'm going to talk about to finish off today's show. It's the kind of the non-human element involved in riding. Now, the first thing I would say is that we have to be pragmatic about this. Nobody wants to kill anything out on the road, at least. I hope you don't. But there is sometimes something else to think about. If we can swerve to avoid an animal, fine, absolutely no problem at all. Then we should do it. And what that means is one of the things that we should be practicing is that swerve exercise that you were taught on basic training. If you didn't do the swerve exercise because your bike test goes back beyond the days of the Module 1 and Module 2 split test, then find out how to swerve and go and practice. Go and find a bit of car park, get out there, find out what the steering does, find out how to use it effectively. You'll be amazed at how maneuverable even a big bike is if you trust that front tire and if you put the right input into the handlebars. Most riders really don't get the bike turning at all quickly. And one of the problems is whenever we get into a scary situation, we tend to ride straight into it thanks to target fixation. If we have the knowledge of the ability to swerve, then there's a far better chance that we'll actually use that technique and maybe get out of trouble. But sometimes we simply cannot swerve. If we're trundling along our bit of road and there's a big truck coming the other way, for example, and something runs out into the road in front of us, then I'm sorry, animal lovers, but I'm more important than what I'm about to hit. So animals tend to fall into three groups. There are those that are small enough to run over perfectly safely, and I'm afraid things like sparrows, newts, toads, mice, rabbits, hedgehogs, and squirrels all fall into that category. I don't want to splat any of them, and I will try and miss them if I possibly can. But ultimately, if I can't, then I'm afraid it's me first. We have to be careful, though, when animals get a little bit bigger. Things like pigeons, cats, small dogs, or foxes are all big enough to potentially cause a crash. And a small lamb would also fall into that category. And then there are the bigger animals altogether, which we're very unlikely to get away without a crash if we do hit them. I'd include pheasants, large dogs, badgers, sheep, deer, cows, and of course horses in that category. So these are the kind of animals that we really do need to be on the lookout for. Now, horses, where can we find a horse? Well, the answer is virtually anywhere. I live in a street here in London, which is the usual kind of residential road. And one of the things that you'll find walking up and down this road 2 or 3 times a day are horses. It just happens that we have the Metropolitan Police, one of their stables not very far away from here, and they use this route to exercise the horses. So you can be trundling down this road and you will come across a horse. So horses can occur anywhere. Having said that, you're more likely to find them out in the countryside. But specifically, think about the edges of towns. Riding's a recreational activity. So a lot of people who live on the edge of a town, who have a sort of maybe a biggish property with a paddock round the back, are likely to have their own ponies. If they don't, they're likely to go to a riding school. And again, whilst you do find riding schools right out in the sticks, the sort of places that take you pony trekking up into the mountains of Wales, a lot of these places actually are on the fringes of towns. So you're liable to be trundling around a nice little lane in the country on a Sunday afternoon or a sunny evening in summer, and you may well come across ponies out and about, maybe just 1 or 2 people, but you're quite likely to find a riding school all out with a big group of horses. Now, whilst most of these horses are reasonably happy with traffic, if you've got a loud exhaust and a bright light on main beam, that will spook them. So first things first, don't ride on main beam around country lanes. It doesn't help you be seen. It just makes other people annoyed with you, and it will spook animals. So get the bike onto dip beam. Secondly, if you've got a loud exhaust, think about what you're doing with it. If you're making lots of racket, you will spook animals with it. You're far less likely to spook animals with a quiet exhaust system. So think about that. At very least, if you see the animal getting at all skittish, what I would say is flick the kill switch, turn the engine off, and pull the clutch in and simply coast past if you can. If you can't, stop. Hopefully the horse rider will walk past you, and then you can restart when they're at a safe distance behind you. If you've got a quiet motor, then you can probably ride past cautiously, but do watch for signals from the rider. What does the rider want you to do? If the rider wants you to go past, go past. But if they're really struggling to control a horse, and I have seen this happen occasionally, then back off, slow down, stop, turn the engine off if you need to. Something else to just watch out for, there are racehorse stables around, so you may come across racehorses being exercised. Most of these animals also leave calling cards behind them. So you do get a warning that they're not too far ahead on many occasions. So keep an eye open for horses. Excuse me. Hay fever is really annoying. Watch out too for 2 horses side by side being led on a lead rein. That is, one person's on the ground walking in front of the horse. What this almost usually means, what this normally means, is that one of the horses is a very young horse and is inexperienced, not used to being on the road, and is being familiarized with road traffic. So take care around horses. And don't forget, there are animals in urban areas anyway. Fairly obviously cats and dogs, but we do see foxes around. Foxes are increasingly common right through cities at night, and they will dart across the road very quickly in front of you. There's very little warning that a fox is going to run across the road, but if you do see one, it'll probably run away from you. But as I say, any side footpaths or accesses round into grassy, green areas, you'll likely see foxes. Dogs, well, dogs basically are fairly unpredictable animals. My general rule of thumb is that big ones ignore you, small ones, sort of yappy things, will tend to run out and try and bite you on the ankle. So I do tend to keep a fairly close eye on the dogs as I ride past. One of the things I'm looking for is whether or not they are with somebody walking them, and if they are with somebody walking them, how are they on a lead? If they are, then basically the animal should be under reasonable control. But if you see a 4-year-old with a Doberman on the other end of the rein, what I call it a rein for, it's a lead. Don't expect that the animal will be under control. The dog will take the 4-year-old for a walk there, not the other way around. Cats generally go and hide under something, but again, they can be spooked. Watch out too around laybys on fast roads. Now, this isn't a joke. This is actually quite serious because I've seen this happen. People tend to get out of their cars and park up at laybys and then let the dog out for a wander. Now, ideally, they've got that on the lead too, but I have seen people let them completely off the lead, and so the dog is running around the lay-by, and I've actually seen one run right into the road in front of a car and very nearly cause a crash. If the dog's big enough to dent the car seriously, it's quite big enough to bring us down. So do have a look areas like that. What else are we looking for? Well, farm animals. So have a look at the kind of environment you're riding through. If you are surrounded by tractors and ploughed fields, then it's unlikely that you will find many things like cows and sheep, because you are in an agricultural area where crops are the main product. But if you've got fields which are full of animals, then the chances of animals being around in front of you on the road goes up dramatically. You may well come across animals being moved from field to field. That happens quite regularly. You may see signs, you may not. If you're on a main road and you see a sign warning of a crossing, they very often have flashing lights. Now, if that light is on, flashing away, it means that there are people actually moving animals right at that very moment in front of you. Even if it's off, don't forget that if you've just moved 150 cows across a bit of road, that road surface is going to be, how would we say, compromised in terms of grip for a distance either side, as vehicles have run through the slippery mess that they leave behind them. So be cautious if you see any warning signs. On rural roads out in the sticks, you're unlikely to get any kind of warning at all. Some farmers will put a temporary sign up either side of their movement, but a lot of times you'll just come around the corner and you'll find the road full of animals. Sheep, cows, all get moved from field to field, so watch out for them. They can also escape. People do stupid things like walk through a gate and then leave it unlocked behind it, and cows can get out onto the road. I came across one not too long ago, and managed to find a local farmer half a mile or so away and told him, and he had a pretty good idea whose cow it was, but it was just wandering around in the road eating the grass at the side of the road. Sheep are particularly good at escaping. They can get through surprisingly small gaps when they put their mind to it, and you're quite likely to find sheep out in the road, and particularly at this time of year when lambs will escape. You will try to follow the lamb if the lamb gets out into the road, so be particularly cautious. The A lot of the trouble comes when you're on what's called an ungated road, and this is almost certainly where that crash I mentioned a few minutes ago in Yorkshire happened. Um, if the roads are unfenced on either side in upland areas, then it's quite likely you're going to find that there are animals roaming free. Sheep, cows, ponies, you're all liable to find them on the road. The clue is you've crossed a cattle grid. The moment you go through a cattle grid and the moment that you're into open moorland, you're now on an unfenced road. Have a look for animal droppings. I'll give you a good clue where they are. If they're flattened and run over and dried up, then they've been there a while. But if they're fresh, then the source may be just around the next bend. Now, in particular, be careful when you are looking at young lambs and their mums. What you'll tend to find is that when they're startled, they'll try to run towards each other. If one's on one side of the road and one's on the other, you can work out what happens next. The more remote the road that you're riding on, the more likely the lamb and the sheep is to be spooked by your bike. If you take one of the main roads across Dartmoor forever, for example, you will find that there are sheep eating the grass literally at the side of the road. You take not the blindest bit of notice when you go past. But if you get off those roads and get right up into the moors on some of the minor tracks, then they really don't see a lot of motor vehicles in the first place, and motorcycles really startle them. So be careful in all these areas. And if you're riding late in an upland area on a remote road, and watch out too for sheep which can go to sleep on the sun-warmed tarmac. Animals that are wild are also a problem, and they're no less dangerous, quite frankly. In general, the worst time finding animals on the road is dusk till dawn. The quieter the road, the greater the chance that you'll find something roaming around the corner. We tend to think of deer as woodland animals, but they quite honestly can be found pretty much anywhere through the UK. Surrey apparently is a bit of a hotspot for collisions with deer. So, it's not just Monaco the Glen up in the Highlands. There's a sizable population of road deer in home counties and close around London. As I say, you normally see them in the evening, but not that long ago, I saw two running across the field right out in the middle of the sun, right up in the midsummer. The rutting season is the time when they're most active, and that's late summer and into the autumn. Watch out for badgers too. They're much smaller animals, but God, are they solid. If you hit one, they are really they give you a real nudge. Very, very solid indeed. You'll often find those around quiet country lanes after dark, and there are often groups of them around as well. They're quite big animals physically, so they can't do what a rabbit would do, which is duck into a hole in the hedge. They will often walk down the road looking for somewhere to get off the road. Village ponds, watch out for ducks and ducklings. They'll quite often walk out into the road in front of you in a little queue. Birds, generally a daytime problem, or a low-flying owl appearing in your headlight is quite unnerving. They'll very often fly down a road looking for small animals that are crossing that road where they're exposed. Barn owls are huge birds, and I've not hit one on the bike, but I have hit two in the cars with a glancing blow where they caught the roof. You might think that small birds aren't a problem, but a blackbird weighs about 100 grams, and it's not much far off what a cricket ball weighs. A little bit softer, but imagine being hit on the helmet by a cricket ball being bowled at 90 miles an hour by a fast bowler. That's what hitting a cricket ball feels like in terms of knocking your head back. And a pheasant is a lot larger. In a study that was done in the Thames Valley area, there were, I think it was 41 fatalities in 1 year, and 3 of those were linked to collisions with pheasants. There are a lot of pheasants around. Watch out for them. If they're in fields, expect them to be in the hedgerow as well around you. And what they tend to do is run into your path, and then they try to take off. And now the average pheasant lumbers into the air with all the speed and alacrity of a very laden jumbo 747, so they don't get airborne very quickly. If you do hit one, it will give you a serious thump. So again, think about where you're going to come across birds while you're riding. All right, okay, that's pretty much all I've got to say today on the topic. Don't forget the Rev conference this evening. Don't forget that my Back to Biking courses are open for business. And finally, don't forget that from today, this is the last of the Friday shows. I'm going down to 2 shows a week, and they will be on Wednesdays and Sundays. So the next show then will be Sunday, and after that we'll see you on Wednesday, and it will be twice a week. So thank you very much again. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Do drop me a line if you have anything to say, and don't forget you can follow me over on my Ko-fi page, ko-fi.com/survival skills. There is support and subscriber content over there, including the content of my Performance Bends course, which is going up as I speak. There are also already well over 100 articles up there to read, which will take you more than a few days, I suspect. Right, so thank you again. Hopefully see you on Sunday. Bye for now.